In the year 1453, the Ottoman Empire conquered Constantinople and defeated the Byzantine Empire. And after that came our golden age, where we conquered the Balkans and became the dominant power in Europe. But in 1683, we declared war on Austria and besieged Vienna. We thought it would be an easy war, but just when it looked like we were about to win, Poland intervened and broke our siege. And with both the Austrian and Polish armies upon us, we began to lose the war. Eventually, Russia also joined the war against us and formed the Holy League. The war lasted for 16 years, until finally, in 1699, the Austrians approached us with a peace treaty. Our loss marked the first time the Ottomans lost land in Europe. The Ottoman Empire's loss in this war would mark the beginning of their decline, and after this point, they would only ever lose territory, and eventually, the empire would collapse after World War I. The game starts off right after we signed the Treaty of Karlowitz with Austria in the year 1699. Now, of course, we plan on taking revenge against the Austrians, but before that, we need to prepare. Now, our first step is realizing and analyzing our defeat to figure out why we lost. And the reason why we lost is because of the Janissaries. The Janissaries are an elite branch of the military who in the early days of the empire were the ones who modernized our military and led us to conquer the Balkans. But over time, they have become more and more corrupt and more conservative, using their political influence to block modernization of the state and military, and burdening our economy with their massive wages. By the time of our war with Austria, they had lost most of their military skill and had become a burden on our empire. But it's not like we can outright fire the Janissaries, as they have enough power to overthrow the Sultan or start a civil war. So to prevent civil war, we will have to weaken the Janissaries slowly, which will take time. While we weaken the Janissaries, other things require our attention. One of those things is the economy, which has been devastated. To fix the economy, we decide to enact a land reform. An additional bonus of the land reform is that it would also weaken the Janissaries by making them poorer, knocking out two birds with one stone. But after we passed the reform, the Janissaries got mad and demanded compensation. But with our loss in the Great Turkish War, the reputation of the Janissaries has also been tarnished. So we decided to take a risk and not compensate them. Using the money from the land reform, we invested in infrastructure and factories and underwent an economic revitalization. Now that the economy is all well, we can focus purely on the Janissaries. We have taken away some of their wealth, now it's time to take away their political influence. And to reduce the influence of the Janissaries, we have to increase the absolute power of the Sultan. We were able to increase his power by blaming the Grand Vizier and the Janissaries for our loss in the Great Turkish War, and so we were able to establish personal rule by the Sultan. Now we have taken away Janissaries' wealth and political power. Now all that's left is to reform the military and leave them out of it. But just then we got some news from Europe that the British and Austrians were at war with the French and the Spanish, and that the Russians and Polish were at war with Sweden. Now, with all of Europe distracted with war, this gives us a great opportunity to deal with our other problem. The other problem I'm referring to is our Balkan minorities. During the Great Turkish War, Christians of the Balkans constantly undermined our military by sabotage or outright rebellion. Now, with Europe distracted, we can deal with them without anyone intervening. We began the process of expelling Christians from the Balkans, which caused rebellions from Bulgaria, Bosnia, Albania, and Armenia. But without any outside intervention, they will be crushed easily. Now it's time to begin the process of expelling the Janissaries from the military. Currently, about half of the military's forces are made up of Janissary divisions. The first step to reduce their influence is to make that percentage much lower. So we started raising more non-Janissary troops until the percentage of Janissaries was only about 20%. Then we started our military modernization and reforms. To keep the Janissaries happy, we decided to compensate them by not completely eliminating them from the military. But after we take revenge on Austria, we will have the Janissaries eliminated, as they will have no more use for us. But before we can take revenge on Austria, we still need to create more military factories, because our rapid expansion of the army has left a lot of troops without proper equipment. So using the last of our fund from the land reform, we opened various new military factories. After the reform, we decided to put the army to the test. We demanded the Greek island of Morea back from Venice, as we had lost it in the Great Turkish War. As expected, they refused, so we declared war on them. We defeated Venice and recovered our island of Morea. Now we were almost ready to deal with Austria. The final step was to repair the Balkans, as a lot of infrastructure was ruined from the war, so we took time to repair it. But while we were repairing, we got some news that France, Britain, and Austria stopped their war with each other and had teamed up with each other to defeat Poland and Russia. This was good news for us, as most of the Austrian divisions were on the Polish border, leaving our border with them very sparsely defended. So we decided to launch a surprise attack on them a few days later. A few days later, we declared war on Austria, and since most of their soldiers were still away from the border, we were able to make quick progress, even encircling a few of their divisions in Hungary. A few days later, we even made it to the Hungarian capital of Budapest and conquered it. But the closer we got to mainland Austria, the slower our progress became, as the terrain got less flat, and more Austrian soldiers started arriving and fortifying themselves. So we decided to take a break and rebuild some of the destroyed supply and infrastructure before we began another offensive. A month had passed and we have already rebuilt all of the supply. And in addition to that, we were very close to Vienna. So we decided to do one more all-out offensive to finally capitulate Austria. Since we were so close to Vienna, we were able to capture it very quickly, but they still didn't surrender. So they forced us to capture the Czech capital of Prague, but even that didn't make them surrender. But finally, after capturing just a few more cities, they eventually surrendered. And now that's one out of the 3 powers we needed to defeat. The next one we eyed was France. So originally, we were going to invade Italy to get through France. But luckily for us, we didn't need to do that since Spain had joined the war. So we quickly sent a lot of our troops to Spain. But just as we were about to fight in Spain, we heard of a rebellion or a civil war in England, the Jacobite Rebellion. So using this opportunity, we actually sent our troops in Spain to England, as this might be the only opportunity to ever get on the English mainland. Now, Britain, they were the masters of the seas, right? But when it came on land, their army wasn't that good. So initially, it did take a long time to break through the Scottish highlands, right? But after we made it to the flat plains of England, it was all smooth sailing from there, as they couldn't defend our army and we were able to take over their whole country very easily. So now, after we've taken over Britain, there's only one foe left, and that is France. After capitulating France, we were able to secure Austria and Italy for ourselves, making us now the most dominant power in Europe. Thanks for watching my video. Please like, subscribe, and share with your friends and family.